Let's chat. Who else is coming in? Lee says he hears me fine. Good. So you're at the looking after yourself as a funeral director and human being. I hope that's the webinar we're going to start very shortly. Oh, I think we're recording is starting. Okay. We've still got a couple of minutes. Just it's David from Lancashire. I'm a celebrant and bereavement. What celebrant and bereavement counsellor for an independent in the Northwest. Welcome. Okay. Anybody else who's on as well? If you want to just type your name in and where you're from, that would be great. And we'll try and, as best we can, keep this as interactive as possible. I think we've got we've got about an hour. It's just coming up 2 o'clock. Okay, I think Is anybody else coming? And Karen. Okay. Okay, I make it just about 2 o'clock now, so let's make a start. Hello then, and welcome to this seminar on looking after yourself as a funeral director and human being. My name's Sunil Raheja. I work as a psychiatrist. I'll introduce myself in a little while. But a very warm welcome to this webinar. This is a new experience for me, and so I'd really value it if you can start putting comments or questions along in the chat box. Now, for some reason on the chat box, it's not telling me when any notifications about that. But let's just see how we go. Okay, so this is like the outline on this subject, and I've given 4 headings here. Really, is why this should be important to you, why it's important to me, although I'm not a funeral director at all, why this is particularly relevant and important now, and what can we do about it. This whole concept and understanding of what does it mean to look after yourself. And it's great to see we've got quite a number of people from all over the country coming in. Welcome as well, Keith Rosedale Funeral Home in Norfolk as well. So let's start. Before I tell you a little bit about myself and my background, let's focus on you really, and let's start off with this first question here. What do you particularly enjoy about your work as a funeral director or working in the funeral industry, as it were? If you'd like to start just chatting, just sort of writing a few things down there, and you'll obviously see where this is coming to in a short while, like that. So that's the first question. What do you particularly enjoy about your work? Is there any comments coming in here? Maybe type in how long you've been particularly working as a funeral director for as well. And what is it you particularly enjoy about that? Just waiting for some comments to come through. Somebody going to be brave to type something in. Oh, here we are. Okay, thank you. Assisting families. Yes, I can imagine that's quite a huge thing there, obviously. A time of real need and obviously quite a lot of emotional turmoil possibly at that time. The privilege of being able to walk, so that was Kevin said, assisting families. Daniel says the privilege of being able to walk alongside people during the most difficult time of their lives. Yes, very much so, I can imagine that. Yes, I was earlier this year, and funeral home that we dealt with were very, very supportive to us. Carolyn says, making a difference to people's lives when they most need us. So there's a lot there in terms of making a difference. Yeah. David says, the opportunity to help people through the hardest of times It is a privilege, but rewardingly, it is very, what do you mean by that? But rewardingly, it is very educational. So yeah, certainly helping people through the hardest times. And I suppose what you're saying, that you're learning about what people go through and the struggles of that. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but as you said, it's a privilege, but rewarding, and it's very educational. Any other comments? Okay, let's go to, oh, somebody just put something on as well. I mean, okay, we learn a lot about people and ourselves, yes, and times of crisis and difficulty, we certainly do. Yeah. Next question I want to come to you is, what are the challenges you particularly have to deal with in your life as a funeral director? If you just type in something like that, some of the particular challenges that you face. Times, and I would be some sort of degree of stress and challenge as well, in terms of the unpredictability and not quite knowing what's around the corner, what's going to happen next. Is that correct? Oh, we have lost video. Okay. Why have we lost video and sound? Everything is okay on my side. It's back on now. Okay, thank you, Daniel. Okay, back now. Yep. Sorry, I've no idea why it's phasing in and out. But anything else in terms of challenges that you face in terms of being a funeral director? Glad I'm back on again. But I would have thought, you're never quite sure what's around the corner, and maybe the emotional challenge as well of continually dealing with stressful, with sad situations. Yeah, Karen said it here, not being overwhelmed by everyone's grief. And if you're doing that day in and day out, then I can certainly imagine that can certainly be quite a challenge. Catherine Beckley says, I run the Safe Support Staff Counselling Scheme. So she's the person who I'm sure will be good to talk to later on if you need support as well. Catherine Beckley of the Safe Support Staff Counselling Scheme. Okay, let's move on, and feel free to add in the chat box as we go along. So a little bit about me. So I work as a psychiatrist both within the NHS and privately. And Terry, your CEO, he invited me here because I also do a blog and a podcast. And it's really around the sense of, the theme is inside out transformation and making sense of life in a challenging and complex world. Particularly around the areas of mental health, spirituality, leadership, cross-cultural issues. So there's some comments here coming through. Oh yeah, sorry. So we hear a lot about cumulative stress when FDs, funeral directors, have many difficult funerals, and this coincides with home or other life stresses. Yes, I can very much imagine that as well. You've got issues going on at home, and then you've got the grief and to deal with of your of the families that you're dealing with, and trying to keep that separate. Unpredictable hours of work and not knowing what situations you're going to be put into. That's what Jade said. I like that. Yeah. So just about me. So yeah. So I've worked as a psychiatrist in a particular area, in this area of managing stress and preventing burnout. So, and I also do a podcast called Making Sense of Life, because we live in a world that's becoming increasingly challenging and complex. If you think about it, 20 years ago, we didn't have mobile phones. We certainly didn't have the internet, and we didn't have this constant connectivity with the world around us. And that often at times could become really overwhelming. And then you add that into your day-to-day work, and there's a potential huge amount of stress that can come. So that's a little bit about my background, working as a psychiatrist, obviously dealing with people who go through a lot of emotional problems and mental illness. I myself had a journey through depression, and sort of seeing the work I had to do on myself to help me grow through that as well. Let's carry on from here. Just building on what I said earlier, this is a quote from a management guru called Peter Drucker. He says, in a few hundred years, when the history of our time is written from a long-term perspective, it's likely the most important event those historians will see is not technology, not the internet, not e-commerce. It is the unprecedented change in the human condition. For the first time, literally substantial numbers of people, rapidly growing number of people have choices. For the first time, they have to manage themselves, and society is totally unprepared for it. Now, what he's saying is that if you think about certainly in the last 20, 30 years, if you think about how the internet and technology has changed our world, excuse me, he's there. If you think about it, is that we have information coming at us from all sorts of directions all the time. And unless you have systems and processes in place to block those out so that you can deal with the most important thing at the right time, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. Somebody just said to me, bless you, so thank you for that. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, but the biggest thing is that the biggest change that we have choice, because how you spend any moment of the day is entirely up to you. So here we are. I mean, this is incredible. This could not have been imagined 30, 40 years ago, that you're all over the world. I'm here in my home office communicating with you through a webinar and slides. Now, that's the one choice you have, but there are 101 other things you could be doing, you know. So that's the big challenge that we face. Along with that, this is the Pulitzer Prize winning author called Ernest Becker says, I think that taking life seriously means something like this, that whatever man does on this planet has to be done in the lived truth of the terror of creation, the rumble of panic underneath everything. Otherwise, it's false. And because we're so connected through the media, through the internet, through technology, there's always a sense, you might have heard the phrase FOMO, fear of missing out. Is there something that I need to know about? And usually bad news travels fast. So some disaster happens on the other side of the world, and we know about it immediately. Whereas, say, 100, 200 years ago, it might have taken months for us to find out about that. And so unless we've got systems and processes and boundaries in place, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. So what I want to suggest is looking after yourself as a funeral director, as a human being, is, first of all, it's attention to be managed rather than a problem to be solved. Now, by that I mean that you never fully crack it. You never fully say, well, I've arrived, okay? That somehow or other I've sorted out all the stress in my life, and it's all, no, because life is continually changing. And that's the danger of thinking that there'll always be a quieter day, or there'll be somehow it'll be easier. I just need to get out of this particular difficult situation, and the next time will be easier. No, there's always something around the corner. And so we've got to make sure that we're in the best possible shape to deal with that, with whatever challenges or stresses are coming our way. And the second point that I want to make there is there's a balance between being and doing. Now, obviously, we are human beings. We're not human doings. And yet it's very easy to get our self-worth and our identity from what we're doing rather than from just being human beings. And the problem is that if I'm having a good day, then I can feel very good about myself. But when things don't go wrong, I have problems with technology or whatever, it's very easy for me to beat myself up about that. So it's getting that balance between task and who I am as a human being. And just building on that, these are sort of some diagnostic questions, if you like, to help me see if I'm getting the balance between being and doing. Am I able to be relaxed and unhurried? And especially I can imagine in your work as funeral directors, when you're dealing with people who are going through such an emotional time in their lives, they don't want you to feel that somehow or other you're rushing off thinking about the next thing. You need to be fully present in the moment with them to help them deal with the grief and to deal with the issues that are facing them. So this is, I appreciate and love one person at a time. I'm fully present where I am. I'm content amidst sufferings and setbacks. I praise and promote others easily and joyfully. I'm generous with my time, money, and gifts. These sort of diagnostic questions to think about getting this balance between being and doing. I forgive and let go of hurts. I'm prudent in conversations and discerning of others. I'm playful and able to laugh easily. So at the same time, while being able to grieve with those who are grieving, being able to, as it were, appropriately enjoy life as well. How do you deal with failure when things go wrong? Do you take that very personally, or are you able to, as it were, separate yourself as a person from making mistakes? So there's a big difference between saying I failed, I did it wrong, where I failed at something, rather than saying I'm a failure. And responding to criticism graciously, looking for the kernel of truth in any criticism, and again, not taking that personally. So looking after yourself as a funeral director and a human being means putting your oxygen mask on first. And if you've been on a flight, you'll know what I mean by this, because what they say is that, before the plane takes off, they say, in case of decompression of the cabin, make sure that you put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you put it on the person next to you. And the point being is that you're no use to anybody if you're struggling to help somebody else and you aren't taking care of yourself. You can't give what you don't have. And so self-care is the first step. It might sound selfish, but again, what if you aren't taking care of yourself, and nobody else will take responsibility for yourself more than you will. So it's recognizing that. So looking after yourself, if you like, so just summarizing where we got to, it's attention to be managed rather than a problem to be solved. It's not something that you can then say, I've cracked it. Life continually keeps changing. There's always something that comes your way that you never anticipated or expected. So you can never say you've arrived. There's this balance between being and doing, about who am I becoming as a person, as well as the tasks that I need to perform. And again, very much as funeral directors, you can do your work very, very efficiently, but you've got to be very, very clear that you're being very empathic and very supportive of the families that you're dealing with. And the other big thing here, again, is this issue about you're a holistic being. You're not a robot. You are body, mind, and spirit. And in coaching, when we do coaching, we talk about this in terms of the wheel of life, and understanding that there are different aspects of my life that I'm involved with. So we've got here just working our way around financial, spiritual, physical. If I'm tired or I haven't got enough sleep, or I'm hungry, it's very easy for me to get very, very ratty or very, very irritated with others. And all it is that maybe I need a bit more sleep, or maybe I need to just have lunch. Missing out on those small, simple things can have a big effect. Intellectual, what do I fill my mind with? Family, again, somebody made that comment earlier on, is that if there are issues going on at home, we've got to be careful that they don't impact into our work life. But we've got to be realistic that we are holistic beings, that they can. And it's about becoming a well-rounded person, so that I have an active social life, and that my life is not just about my career. I'm much bigger than that. Again, if anybody wants to make any comments as we go along, please feel free to. Okay, we're going to now just turn over to a video. It's a short 10-minute video about understanding stress. Now, hopefully we should get onto that here. Just bear with me. Oh, not that presentation. Oh, here we are. Okay, now hopefully this should work. This is on my blog, and about the single most important thing you can do to Okay, am I coming through now?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Okay, whoops. Yeah, okay, I think am I coming, can you hear me now? I think, can somebody just type in, yes, you can hear me, great, okay. Whoa, the wonders of technology, okay. Perhaps this is a case example of dealing with stress, like that. Yes, lots of yeses coming through, great. The point about stress is that word stress first was invented by a guy called Hans Sale, who was, I think, an endocrinologist at the beginning of the 20th century. And just before he died, he actually apologized for using the word stress. Because stress comes from the world of physics, which is about the force on an object. So if you can see me here, the force on an object, an external force on an object, like I'm showing you here with my hands. Well, actually, the nature of the object itself, say if you want to use my hand as an example, the nature of the object itself is as important as the force coming down on it. So one of the points he wants to make in the video is that one of the best ways to handle stress is changing how you think about stress. If you think stress is bad for you, then that has very negative effects on the way you'll handle it and even on your health. Whereas if you see stress can actually be potentially positive and beneficial, then it can actually do you a lot of good. So that's, for example, why say Olympic athletes break world records when they compete in the Olympics, because they come to look at the stress of the environment as actually something that's good for them. Now, if the athlete thinks too much about it, if they start thinking, here I am at the Olympic Games with billions of people watching me, I might never get a chance ever in my life. If they overdo it, they begin to choke, and that will then lead to a worse performance, and the stress will as it will, be bad for them. But if you can change the way you think about it, then that can have enormously positive effects. Any questions or thoughts about that? Well, we are talking about stress. Sue has said yes. Thank you for your patience with me on this as well, like that. We started off with that quote from Peter Drucker, and there's a Harvard Business Review article which is called Managing One. And I would have thought that as funeral directors, you've got to be very good at managing yourself, because you have people who have sudden bereavements and who can call you at any day or night, and so you've got to deal with them. But at the same time, once you've dealt with whatever crisis or difficult situations arisen, you've got to get back onto the other things that need to be done. So how does one manage oneself, and how did you do that in a way that builds you up rather than sort of drains and sucks the life out of you? So again, I can send a link to Claire or Angela with I'm just making a note here with a Drucker article as well. But he basically asked 5 questions, and these are the 5 questions there. These are: what are my strengths? Understanding what am I good at. Usually in life, we tend to focus on what we're bad at. But if you can focus on what you're good at and look at that better, then that will increase your confidence and also enable you to handle whatever challenges come your way. So the example that's often given, is if you're say, for example, 2 or 3 at something, if you work really hard, you might become a 4 or a 5, which is just average out of 10. But if you're a 7 or 8 at something and you work really hard, you could become a 9 or a 10. That's that. So rather work on what you're best at, and then find ways to delegate or get other people to do things that you're not so good at. The other one is, how do I perform? Which means, how do I work best? And in the article, he talks about some people are very good at taking information through reading. Others are much better at listening. It's understanding the ways that you perform best. Do you deal with sudden, and do you like spontaneity, or do you like a much more planned and measured approach? So as you begin to understand yourself better, then you can try to, as it were, put structures around your life to enable you to work in the best way. What are my values? What are the things that are most important to me? Where do I belong? In a large organization, a small organization? And then what is my unique ability? What is it that I'm able to contribute to others? Somebody just put a comment here. In strength, there is great resistance. That's from Carolyn. What do you mean by that, Carolyn? I'm not quite sure what you mean. There is great resistance. If you want to just type in what you mean by that, we'll try. Now, on this chart here, we're moving over to thinking about resilience. And what's fascinating about people, working in psychiatry is one of the things that got me into psychiatry as well, was how different people are. And on this chart, if you think about something that happens to someone, there's disruptive change. Maybe it is a bereavement. Take that as an example. Somebody loses a loved one, and I'm sure you've heard the stages of grief, but there's a sense of being attacked, a sense of feeling very numb and feeling very upset. And for many people, they go into a victim mindset, and in many ways, that's quite natural to do that. The question is how long you stay there. Some people tragically can stay there their whole lives, in terms of feeling that they're a victim to life circumstances. But other people find a way to cope and then become resilient and then actually thrive. There's a famous quote, I think, from Nietzsche that says, what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. So it's this ability to deal with adversity and problems, or some major disruptive change, be that a loss of job, be that a sudden change in your circumstances. And rather than being stuck, actually able to grow through that. Somebody's just made a comment here. Yeah, you're better able to cope if you're mentally strong. And that's a very important point that comes through, is that if you're able to bring your best foot forward and bring your best self to the game, if you like, then you're much likely to be able to, as it were, go up that chart and actually thrive and grow rather than being sort of burnt out and disillusioned. So can I throw it over to you? What do you think are some of the factors that make people resilient and able to deal with stress and not drown in their stress, but actually become stronger? What do you think some of those things are? You'd like to sort of just type a few things in the chat. What do you think the things that enable people not to become a victim, but to actually grow and develop? Let's just see some comments coming through. Okay, yeah, objectivity. David says objectivity. So by that, I think what you're meaning is be able to separate yourself from what's going on around you, so that you, if we take, for example, dealing with bereavement all the time, you want to be compassionate for the people who are going through bereavement, but also able to keep some degree of distance from there as well. Because if you're completely at a loss as well, then that's going to be you're not going to be much use, because you're there to perform a job and to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Karen says support from colleagues, family, and friends. Now that's a great point there. A really important positive health factor that's better than giving up smoking, better than eating healthily and exercise, is having strong interpersonal relationships. So that's a really good point there. Thank you, Karen. Jade talks about confidence. And that goes back to, that Harvard Business Review article, is that if I'm working in an area that I'm good at and I've got strengths in, then that enables me to have confidence and be able to, as it were, persevere on when I'm going through difficult situations. Carolyn says support of others, colleagues and family. Yes, which builds on Karen's comments earlier on. Karen says knowledge. So yeah, so not realizing that I have limitations, trying to do everything, trying to please everyone, that can be particularly dangerous in terms of not developing resilience. As well as learning about resilience, in a sense, has its own positive effect, because it raises my awareness that there is a better way. Carol says, having gone through things oneself and got through it. So yes, having been through it and know that and seen the light at the end of the tunnel, absolutely. Sharing, absolutely. That's from Lee. Not just bottling things up in your head. Now, women are much better than this than us men. Men, I'm talking in general terms here, but men, when they're stressed, tend to, as it were, if you've read the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, men tend to go into their cave and tend to ruminate on things, and that's why men can, as it were, really struggle emotionally quite badly, whereas women are very good at then talking about it with others as well, and getting it off their chest. So sharing is really important. Lee's building on that, open up to others, yeah, not just bottling up with yourself. Catherine says, proactive self-care, yeah, brilliant. Exercise, sleep, healthy eating, social support networks, positive mindset. And no one else is going to do these things for you. You have to take responsibility for that. No one's going to say, are you sleep? Are you exercising enough? You're the one, and you're the one who's the best judge of that. Some people have, and Carol says some people have their faith. And again, you working as in the funeral industry, I'm sure you've seen that. Faith is a huge source of support and comfort for many people. Thank you. That's quite a wide group of things. So let me run through some of the things that I've written. So how much control you feel you have. When you feel that you've got a degree of autonomy, the fact that you are, as it were, in charge, have got some degree of charge and control of your life, that builds resilience. Now, obviously, at times things can get very stressful and very, very busy. But if you feel that you've got some control of the calendar, or you can look forward to that, then that will increase resilience. That's why it's very important to make sure that you have, that you have time off, and that you're able to completely switch off from work, because then you're not then, as it were, on the beck and call. You feel you have, because it doesn't have to be a great amount. Just setting aside half an hour a day, that's your time, and with the mobile off, with not connected technology, so that you can totally, as it were, do something that energizes you and rejuvenates you, is really important. Oops, next one. Okay. We talked about this from your responses, the richness of your social networks in terms of family and friends. You cannot underemphasize that. Hugely important. We pick that up. Your openness to change. If you're, as a joke is that the only person who likes change is a baby in wet nappies. All of us can struggle with change to one degree or other. Being able to not catastrophize and being able to look for the good in change is hugely important. Again, somebody else talked about this, a positive attitude like optimism. Now, the exciting thing about this is that, some of us are glass half empty, glass half full. I mean, as a confession to you, for most of my life, I've been a glass half empty kind of person. And yet all the research shows that optimism can be learned, and optimists have healthier lives and happier lives. So although pessimists might be right at times with their cynicism, you have a much better life if you're optimistic, look for the positive. It makes a huge difference. Again, you've touched on this, self-care skills, the importance of regular exercise, sleeping well, avoiding junk food, enjoying friends and family, the simple things in life. These are what build up resilience, and setting aside time for them. One of the big tricks that I learned is that when life gets stressful, it's very easy to say, I haven't got time for exercise. I haven't got time to sleep well. I need to eat food very quickly and eat junk because I've got no time to cook. I've got no time to visit my family and friends. I've got no time for my faith, somebody else talked about. When actually, when the going gets tough, you need to actually do more of those things. You need to do more of those things that rejuvenate you. Otherwise, if you think of, I just get the video there. If you think take this glass here. This glass has got a certain capacity, and if there's a drain, if you're always taking out, then the level will go down. Unless you're filling it with things that you enjoy doing, eventually there'll be nothing left. And a sense of humor, being able to laugh at yourself. Okay, so take your work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. Okay, that's an important distinction. Your work is important, but you've also got to be able to have places where you can completely switch off and have a laugh. If you remember, the first factor we had there, if I just go back to, was how much control you feel you have. And there was a psychiatrist called Viktor Frankl, who was in a concentration camp in a Nazi Germany. So no matter how stressful you feel life is, it can't compare to being in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. But one of the things he discovered in that concentration camp was that although terrible things were happening to him, that he didn't have to allow what was happening to him affect him internally. So here he was in a concentration camp with Nazi torturers, doing terrible things to him and to the people around him. But he said, there's in my mind that no one can touch unless I give them permission. So in that awful situation, he began to think, what are the things I'm learning here? What am I doing? What are the lessons I can take out of this awful situation that I can teach my students when I get out? So on this chart, you see this response. And for very primitive organisms, stimulus leads to response. So, if you think about a knee, you tap a knee and you get a knee reaction. The knee jerks upward. But because we're human beings, made in a complicated and wonderful way, we have these other four things: self-awareness, imagination, conscience, and independent will. So, for example, just because somebody says something nasty to you does not mean to say you have to respond back in an angry or nasty way back. You could choose to respond in a positive way. So let's just make a cocktail. Man's Search for Meaning, a worthwhile read. Viktor Frankl. Thank you so much. That's David. Yes, from Man's Search for Meaning. That's the book on there, and that's very much came out of the experience in the Nazi concentration camp. But he was able to, as it were, build on these issues about self-awareness, being able to separate himself from what was going on. I think somebody earlier on talked about objectivity. Okay, I don't like where I'm at, but I don't have to actually find my identity around using imagination. So I said to you, he started thinking about what lectures he would teach once he left the concentration camp. Conscience, being able to think about, look at life from a higher vantage point, and an independent will. This whole issue is that I don't have to follow the crowd. I don't have to respond the way that other people are. So this freedom to choose. And again, the video that I want you to watch is showing you that this freedom to choose. You can think in a different way. It all starts with the way that we think. Now, I have to send you this link. It's a 4-minute video. I won't try and do it because I think we lost the sound last time. So not to risk losing the sound. But this is, have any of you heard of this guy called Nick Vujicic? He's a remarkable man. Just type in yes if you have. But what's remarkable about him is that he was born, as you can see, with no arms and no legs. And imagine the impact that had on his parents. You can imagine the impact that it had on him growing up. And he talks very openly about, he just thought his life was not worth living. For a long time, he felt very suicidal. But now, and the video I was going to show you, is he's one of the happiest people you could ever imagine. And the video basically shows him playing golf, swimming, enjoying life, doing remarkable things. He's a professional coach. He's got his own business. The video doesn't show it, but he's actually married now with, I think, 2 or 3 children. And he's a remarkably happy person. And he has this whole philanthropic charity that goes around the world, talks to young, to young people who are struggling with depression and low self-esteem, and basically challenging them, saying, well, if you think your life is miserable, look at my life, and I'm a living example of that can really be very positive, even without any arms and with no arms and no legs. I think it's called "No arms, no legs, no worries" is the phrase that he uses there. But again, it's using these kind of extreme examples of Nick Vujicic or of Viktor Frankl, because I don't know if you come across that phrase, it's yes, but, you talk to somebody and they say, well, yes, you say that, but my situation is, well, with all due respect, no matter how difficult your stress may be, I'm pretty sure you've got 2 arms and 2 legs, and I'm pretty sure you're not in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. And if these people can show a better way, I'm sure there's something that we can learn from that. Any comments or questions from that? But again, feel free to if you want to. But we won't watch the video because we might not get back on again. So let's carry on. We're talking about resilience. So resiliency to cope well with high levels of ongoing disruptive change, not to become that victim. If you remember that chart we had earlier on, but actually to grow and develop. This ability to bounce back, to master change, to thrive under adversity. And the other thing, to sustain good health and energy when under constant pressure. So you're able to grow. You remember I said earlier on that it's remembering that we're holistic beings. We're body, mind, and spirit. There are so many different aspects to my life. My life is more than just my work. I'm a full-rounded individual. So when I understand that, then I'm not, as it were, putting all my eggs in one basket, but I'm actually looking at myself in a holistic way. So the ability to bounce back easily from setbacks. So when things go wrong, not to take them personally. Okay, I failed at this task, but it doesn't mean to say so. The ability to to bounce back and to just keep on trying. If you think of a little baby learning to walk, gets up, falls down, gets up, falls down, gets up, falls down. If some cruel parent was trying to say to the baby, you've fallen 1,000 times, why do you want to keep on going on? Well, that'd be terribly cruel, but the baby doesn't think that way. It just bounces back, and that's the same kind. That's what resilience is about. The ability to overcome. That's the real mark of who you are, is your ability to handle adversity. And then this other big thing is to change to new ways of working and living when an old way is no longer possible. So the ability to be flexible, the ability to look for other alternatives when something isn't in the way that you want. Any questions or thoughts about that? Feel free to type it in. And do all this without going into harmful or destructive ways, basically. So without going into drink, drugs, or into habits that trying to anesthetize yourself with drink or drugs or other things that eventually will catch up with you. So it's finding. So if we talk about the exercise and positive relationship, those are, if you like, positive addictions rather than the negative addictions. I think my dog is just wanting to put a word in as well. Okay, where are we now? We're at 22. So in the last bit, we're going to talk something about emotional intelligence. And I've got a little quiz, so I hope you'll interact with me on that, and we'll see how we go. So emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize our feelings and also recognize the feelings of others and motivate ourselves. And this is something that goes back a long, long way. You've got Aristotle, but I love this quote here, that anyone can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person at the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, in the right way, that's much, much harder. So it's controlling your emotions and using them in an appropriate manner. So this is the quiz, okay? So please just type in here which of these think, okay? And we're going to learn about it just in a fun way, and then this is how we're going to close with this. We've got 10 questions, and I think we've probably got time to go through it. You're on an aeroplane that suddenly hits extremely bad turbulence and begins rocking from side to side. What do? You continue to read your book or magazine or watch the movie, trying to pay little attention to the turbulence. You become vigilant for an emergency, carefully monitoring the stewardess, the emergency instruction card. Both A and B. Or would you say you don't do any? You've never noticed? Let's see what come result. Some results typing in here. We've got C, C, C. Oh, everybody's typing in C, 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 C. Everybody's typing, well, good, okay. Oh. I think someone's got here an A, someone else got a C. And I won't read out names, because I don't want to, because it's a fun exercise, okay? So, I'm trying to experientially teach you about emotional intelligence. The correct answer is C, a little bit of A and B. The lowest mark would get A, B, and C would get 10 out of 10, whereas D would get 0 out of 10. The reason being is marks of emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize your own feelings and be aware that actually there's some turbulence going on here. I'm not quite sure whether this is a bad thing or not, or how much I should worry about it. So I need to pay a little bit of attention to see what the stewardess is saying, but it's probably nothing at all. So let me just enjoy the flight and just let the experts deal with this. So that's why C gets the top mark there. So A, B, and C, I should say. And I can see actually nobody said D, which is well done. Well done to you all there. Okay, the next one is coming up. Yeah. Okay, how about this one? You're in a meeting when a colleague takes credit for work that you have done. What do? Do you immediately and publicly confront the colleague over the ownership of your work? Do you, after the meeting, take the colleague aside and tell them that you'd appreciate in the future that she credits you when speaking about your work? Because after all, you did it, and credits, it needs to go where it's due. Or C, you say nothing at all. It's not a good idea to embarrass colleagues in public. Or D, after your colleague speaks publicly, you thank her for referencing your work and give the group more specific detail about what you were trying to accomplish. Let's have a think about that. How would you answer that? Some answers coming in. So we're getting some, what are we getting? Skill. People come bringing in. We're getting a mixture of C's and D's coming in. Yep, C's and D's, lots of C's and D's coming through. So just again, so you're in a meeting, say 5 or 10 of you, and one of your colleagues starts taking credit for something you, now, again, you don't know the full context of this, and depend on the context, but A will actually get 5 out of 10. The reason being that you're actually asserting yourself. Now, whether it's a wise thing to do it publicly, I think, is another matter, because you're also shaming the person there as well. And so that's not ideal, but at least you're being assertive about yourself. B would get 10 because you're being assertive and you're respecting the other person and telling them that, you know, actually you did that, really, and that helping them to see where they're coming from, seeing that why it was not appropriate that they, as it were, own the work as their own. C would get 0, okay, because you're not really being honest about the fact about who you are and being appropriately assertive. And D gets 10 marks, really, because it's after the colleague speaks, you publicly thank him, because you're not ashamed, but you're also making it clear that this is something that you've done. So yeah, so we've got a couple of, so well done. We got Janet gave a D, Karen gave a D there, Jardine Funerals gave a D there. So yeah, so it's taking the higher road, the higher path there. Let's go to number 3. Okay, you're a customer service representative. So, okay, well, you're a funeral director, and you've got an extremely angry relative on the phone to you about maybe a funeral that you've recently done. What do? Do you hang up? It doesn't pay to take abuse from anyone. Do you listen to the person? You rephrase what you gather he's feeling. Do you explain that the person's being unfair, that you're only trying to do your job and you appreciate if they wouldn't get in the way of this? Or tell the client you understand how frustrating this must be for them, and offer a specific thing you can do to help them get the problem resolved. So why don't you just type a few things there? Some answers coming in through there. Yeah, you've got a B and 2 Ds have come through. Anybody else coming through? Just a moment to think about it. B and 2 Ds. Okay. Okay, so there you are. You're a funeral director, and you got an extremely angry person on the phone. Somebody else put another D there. The point is, they're angry about something. Now, it may have nothing to do with you whatsoever. So again, you've got to get this, separate your feelings up. So A is a bad move. Okay, just hang up. It doesn't. You're likely probably to make it worse there. The problem with B is that you're listening. You're just repeating back what they're saying, so you're not actually doing anything with the emotion. So that wouldn't get full mark. C is not a good idea because you're taking it personally and you're not understanding that whatever they're upset about is real to them. And that's why D is if you like, is the one that gets the top marks, because it's acknowledging that the person is acknowledging their feelings and how frustrating it is for them. But you're not just leaving them there. You're trying to take them along a path that ultimately can help resolve the issue for them and make them feel better. So yeah, so number you've got to put D there. Next one. You're a college student who'd hoped to get an A course that was important for your future career aspirations. You just found out you got a C-. Okay, maybe this is, let's just change that. Let's say there's a funeral director. This is your evaluation, and you've got very negative feedback on him. So do you sketch out a specific plan to improve? Do you say you don't have what it takes and you leave? You tell yourself it doesn't really matter, and you look at where you can do better? Or do you try and get the person to give you a better grade? This may not be so relevant to your context, but let me rush through this one actually. I mean, what this is saying really is, again, is that when you fail at something, do you regard yourself as a failure, or are you able to separate yourself from it? And that's why the third one, C there, tell yourself it doesn't really matter, and then look at getting a better mark, is the one that actually gets the highest mark there. Let's move on. Okay, so in your organization, you're trying to encourage respect for racial and ethnic diversity, but you hear someone say a racist joke. What do? Do you ignore it and just say that it doesn't matter, and you don't want to pay attention to it? Do you call the person to your office, explain their behavior is inappropriate, and that there'll be disciplinary action if it carries on? Do you speak up on the spot saying such jokes are inappropriate and will not be tolerated? Or do you suggest that they go to a diversity training program? What would you suggest if that happened in your company? Rogers would, okay, yeah, would disagree with you. Yeah, I think I think this that one I'm paraphrasing. Are you referring to the previous one, David? I think I was just trying to think about your context there. Here, the issue is that somebody said a racist joke, and culture. You want to make sure that this is not tolerated, and that's why the third one, speaking up on the spot, takes a lot of courage and saying that it's not appropriate. It's sending a message to everybody in the organization that this is completely unacceptable. So that's why the third one top marks. The second one would get, if you like, is second best. But the first one and the fourth one really aren't dealing with the issue. That's the issue about that. Yeah, that's the issue. Somebody's written 5B. Okay. Oh, I see. Oh, that's helpful. Yeah, it's question 5. Yeah. So you've got to deal with the issue, but if you can deal with it in a public way, then you're sending a message that the culture of the organisation is such that these things will not be tolerated. So you're not brushing it under the carpet. Okay, let's keep moving on. No, let's not do that one. Let's not do that one. How about this one? You're trying to calm a colleague who has worked herself into a fury because a driver of another car has cut it dangerously close in front of her. What do? Do you tell her to forget about it? She's okay now. It's no big deal. Do you put on one of her favorite tapes? And you can see this is dated. Put on one of her favorite MP3s or CDs and try to distract her. Do you join her in criticizing the other driver? Do you tell her about time something like this happened to you and how angry you were? Felt the other driver was until you saw the other driver was on the way to the hospital. Which would you say? Your answers coming up here. We've got a few A's coming. Actually, yeah. A's, another D. Someone's got D there. An A. Got a lot of A's. Yep. The problem with the first one is you're denying the fact that this person is upset. They are what they are. They're upset. They have, So the more emotionally intelligent answers would be B, C, and D. With D being top. So B and C is acknowledging that the person is upset and try and find a way to move them on. Even joining criticizing is at least because when we talk to any is that we need to have people to share our feelings and emotions with. So at least that can defuse the situation. But the top mark would be D, which is in a sense of seeing that people do all sorts of things for all sorts of reasons, and it's sometimes can be very hard to know why they do what they do, and this is better for your own health as well. So well, maybe that's what it is. And obviously you may never see them again anyway. So that's why D gets the top mark. Oh, this is an interesting one. A discussion between you and your partner has escalated into a shouting match. You both are upset, and in the heat of the argument start making personal attacks, which neither of you really means. What's the best thing to do? Do you take a 20-minute break before continuing the discussion? Do you go silent, regardless of what your partner says? Do you say you're sorry and ask your partner to apologize too? Or do you stop for a moment, collect your thoughts, and then reach as precisely as possible? What's some answers there? Some things coming through? We've got a couple of C's coming through. Anybody else? A D? A B? Okay. A D. So we've got a couple of C's, a couple of D's. Okay. So again, remember, this is about emotional intelligence that helps to build resilience here. So it's a very emotional situation now, and you're going to start saying things that you regret. That's why the first one is a good thing to do, because you need to diffuse and get some objectivity about this. Going silent, unfortunately, is going to basically brush the issue under the carpet, and you're not dealing with it. C, saying you're sorry and asking your partner to apologize too. You can't force that. You can't, if it's going to be a sorry, they're not going to mean it. Or D, you collect your thoughts, then restate your. The problem with D is that you're getting stuck, and you're into a negative conversation loop that's going to go round and round and round. And if you carry on doing what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And you need to break away, because what's happening is your emotions, there's a part of your brain called your amygdala that is now taking control, and you're going to lose perspective. You've got tunnel vision, and D is a bad idea, I'm afraid, because you need to get out of the traditional loop. Okay, we're almost there. Number 9. We've got just 2 more. You've been given a task of managing a team that has been unable to come up with a creative solution for a work problem. What's the first thing that you do? Do you draw up an agenda, call a meeting, and allot a specific period of time to discuss each item? So then maybe this is something in your business, a problem that you just draw up an agenda, say we're going to meet and we're going to discuss it. Do you organise an off-site meeting aimed specifically at encouraging the team to get to know each other better? Or do you begin by asking each person individually for ideas about how to solve the problem? Or do you start with a brainstorming session, encouraging each to say whatever comes to mind, no matter how wild? Let's see what answers coming through at the moment. Okay, that's D. We've got something happening with D. Anybody thoughts? I don't think about what to say there. D. Lots of D's coming through. Okay. So just to paraphrase here, so if you think about this, so you've got a problem in your business and you don't know how to solve it. The problem with the first one, drawing up an agenda, is that you need to think outside the box. You need to, has this ever happened to you? Is you've got a problem at work and you go away on holiday, or it's the weekend and you're having a shower or something, and suddenly the answer, you're not even thinking about it, suddenly the answer to your mind, the more creative we become. And so you've got to create an environment where people are relaxed, and that's more likely an out-of-the-box answer will come to you. So that's why organizing an off-site meeting, the second one, aimed specifically at encouraging the team to get to know each other better, is actually the best, because you're taking your mind off the problem and being able to look at it, well, allowing your subconscious mind to begin to deal with it. And that's why asking each person individually, trying to force the answer won't, because that's not the way our brains work. And while the fourth one, starting with a brainstorming session, that's the idea as well. If you're having the meeting in your place of work, you're going to be thinking in the same way, and there may be an out-of-the-box answer that you haven't got access to. Oh, yeah, thank you, Carolyn. We've got another couple of minutes. I'll just do the last one, and then I'm going to close. So if you need to go, that's no problem. Actually, let me come to the end, actually, because it is time there. I love this. This is it may well even be in your funeral funeral parlor, which is God give us grace to accept the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. That, if you like, is emotional intelligence, wisdom to do that. But what I love about the end of the prayer, which you don't see very much, is, and I close with it because you're funeral directors as well, and I just love this because it illustrates what it means to deal with stress and grow in resilience. It's living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is. So this messed up with it complicated if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy in the next. And I just thought that's a very appropriate way to end, because you're funeral directors as well. I will send some links to the videos to Angela. Actually, I think Angela, you've got them already, so she can send those. Along with the links, to the website. There's a lot more there on managing stress and promoting resilience. So thank you very much. I'm sorry we couldn't do the videos, but thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that was helpful to you. I'll say bye-bye now. Thank you. Bye-bye.